Greetings, Andy here again, and this is my regular monthly roundup of new releases I've bought during the previous month. So here I'm looking at new records, brand new records that I bought during May, and there are 8 of them, some really interesting ones. I've got a lot of really good female vocals, so half the 4 records are featuring that, and then there's a whole range of stuff. So I've got some old school blues rock, I've got some shoegaze, I've got some jazz in there, and an interesting debut from somebody I could only really describe as a bit of a strange dude, and we'll come to him at the end, and also an apology, because I'm really chasing my tail this week, so I'm going to skip the samples, just that they take quite a lot of time to do, and I want to get the video out this week and not sort of put it off till next, which would be what would happen. But what I will do is have a look on YouTube and put some links to sample tracks from these albums, which are published on YouTube by the band or somebody. So let's start with what I think is the big one for this month, and for me quite an important one, and I'm talking about Beth Gibbons and her new album Lives Outgrown. Beth Gibbons, obviously Portishead, wonderful singer. This is her first album for slightly over 20 years, and it's very good, and I'll come to the detail of it in a minute, but let me start with her previous album, which was with Rusting Man. It was Out of Season, Beth Gibbon and Rusting Man, and there is a connection between this one and this, not least obviously because it's Beth, and I have to say this is more reminiscent of this than maybe her Portishead work. Oh, not surprising really, because she's grown up. But the link I'm going to make is Talk Talk and another band called, if memory serves, O Range, because Rusting Man is otherwise Paul Webb, who was the bass guitarist in Talk Talk. And in here, she's got 2 really important collaborators, and some others, but two who are central to it and could easily be jointly mentioned, though this is is Beth Gibbons, not Beth Gibbons and. But she's working on this one with Lee Harris, who was the drummer in Talk Talk, so she's working with the rhythm section of that great band, and apparently I don't remember this, but apparently when Talk Talk disbanded, Paul Webb and Lee Harris formed a band. I think it's O Range. I should have written it down. And Beth Gibbons worked with them a bit, and she was at some point going to be the singer with it, but then Portishead took off, and so she did a bit of collaboration, and obviously they've remained friends, and the drumming on here is really interesting. At first sight it sort of seems quite simple, but actually it's not. It's far from it. There's quite a lot of timpani, kettle drum use. So, well, to my ear it sounds like kettle drum, and it's almost as if on some tracks the drumming is playing the part of both the percussion and the bass, in a way, the bass line. But perhaps really core to it is a guy called James Ford, who is no relation. Now, James Ford is the producer of this album, but he's also a multi-instrumentalist and plays hugely number of different instruments across every track on here, including on some parts a bowed saw. Now James Ford is a well-known producer, so he's the sort of producer of choice for Alex Turner of Arctic Monkeys, and actually James Ford actually was part of the last Shadow Puppets, which was one of his side projects. And similarly with Damon Albarn, so he has produced both Blur and Gorillaz, and his own band was a band called Simian Mobile Disco, which you may have heard of, and musically this is fabulous. But obviously it's all about Beth's voice, and she has apparently been gestating this for some 10 years or so, been working on it off and on. It's not an upbeat album. If there's a theme, she's written all the lyrics and sings them. If there's a theme, it's about sort of aging, being a bit shit is the way I would describe it. So she sort of sings about, sorry, I've got some notes here because there's lots of stuff to do. One track, love, sort of the way love loses its spark and becomes perhaps a bit ordinary. Obviously the loss of people, loved ones. Even she sings about the menopause, apparently, and I read that in a review. I haven't sort of spotted that, but then I'm a bloke and wouldn't notice, would I? But despite the fact it's sort of slightly relentlessly, if I say miserable, that gives completely the wrong impression, because it doesn't take you down. The singing is beautiful. The music is really, at first sight, at first hearing, you think it is relatively simple, but it's far from it. I was going to say it's quite complex, but the review I read, which was in the Sunday Times, called it sophisticated, and that's probably a good way of describing it. It never plays second fiddle to Beth's voice, which it could easily have done. So it's musically a really good album, very well made, very well produced by James Ford, and who is playing most of the instruments. Great percussion from Lee Harris on there, and of course Beth's voice, and she has, and there's some orchestration as well and the usual stuff. But the backing vocals are done by Beth's kids, so I think she's got 3 kids. They're in their teens and late teens and 20s, and they actually sing the backing vocals for her on a number of tracks. So this is really, I have to say, is my album of the month. It is superb. I have played it a lot during the last month, and it's how many tracks are there? It's a classic 10 tracks, 5 on each side, single LP, and it's this one is just on black vinyl. So coming to my second, and I think, there's a lot of variety I've got here, but my second one is perhaps my second favourite album of the month. After that, they're all mixed up. And it's another female vocalist, but entirely different, sort of almost a polar opposite of Beth Gibbons' album. And I'm talking about Adrienne, I'm not sure how she pronounces it. Adrienne, not Adrienne, Adrienne Lenker. Now, she's new to me. I've not really heard of her before. But she's been around a while, and I think this is her 5th solo album, and she's also the lead singer in a band called Big Thief that I've, again, never heard of. She was born apparently in Indiana, in Indianapolis, but moved as a child to Minnesota and grew up there. But she sounds like she comes from much further south. Her voice is sort of like Americana, but the music is far from it. It's really simple. It's very simple music. Just in the background to her singing, just piano, some acoustic guitar, either or usually, and then sometimes a fiddle. But it's really her voice and her lyrics which come across. She articulates those lyrics really well, with great clarity. There's no mumbling or murmur or anything in here. It's always right at the fore, and the music is really pared back and so simple, but in a really positive way. Let me just check my notes. So as I say, it's real sort of almost polar opposite to the musical sophistication and sometimes subdued singing from Beth. The opening track, which is called Real House, is like an ode to her mother, and she sings it really from. And it is she does sing it, not narrate it. Though there is an element of narration in the subject, but it's almost a bit like a poem. But she's singing from the heart. It's almost like a conversation with her mother. She's singing to her mother. Do you remember? She says several times, and she's reminiscing about events during childhood and how her mother was always there for her, and how growing up her mother was an important person. And it goes on. The whole album is just so beautifully sang. It's another one I can listen to over and over again, and it's just entirely different. It's not my usual fare. I mean, I do like a bit of Americana, but it's much more laid back than I would usually listen to, but I absolutely love it. She's got such a brilliant vocal voice, and if you like sort of singer-songwriter, folk, should we say folky? It's folk really rather than Americana. If you like really good quality female singer-songwriter, then this is one to have a listen to. So, and again, it's where are we? How many tracks? It's this one's 6 tracks on each side, so it's still a single LP. Have we got any inserts in here? There's obviously the oh, there's a, yeah, I thought there was an insert in here. There's a little sort of mini poster of her there, and sort of family members and the like, plus obviously lyrics on the inner sleeve, and it's just on black vinyl. As I say, a really lovely one, and quite unusual. So now we're really going to something, and now for something completely different. As I think it was the Monty Python used to say. And we're going to some really old school blues rock, and the Black Crowes and their first album in, I don't know, 10, 15 years, called Happiness Bastards. Now this is a bit like buses, you wait there for ages and then 3 come along all at once. And over the last couple of months, I think this came out in April, maybe early May, but I think it was April, along with a new release from the Black Keys and also the Kings of Leon. So there we've got 3 classic US blues rock bands all producing an album, pretty much within a few weeks of each other. Now, I really like the Black Keys. So the Black Keys are I've got quite a lot of their stuff, mostly on CD, but I bought their last album, which was called Dropout Boogie, a couple of years ago, and I bought it on vinyl, so it was more expensive, but I was really disappointed. There was just somehow it just didn't fire up for me. And I streamed the new one as well, and equally was slightly underwhelmed with that. Same with the Kings of Leon. I like their first 2 or 3 albums and have those, but I haven't really liked much they've done since. And again, it didn't really do much for me. Now, the Black Crowes, I don't have anything for. Obviously, I know them, but I've never bought any of their stuff. And again, I listened to a couple of tracks and wasn't really sure, and I thought, well, maybe I'm just not in the mood for blues rock at the minute. But I thought, well, it's a genre which I've always really liked, going right back to my to the early days of the 70s and some of the British blues rock bands at the time. And I thought, well, and I ought to have a Black Crowes album in my collection. So I went out and bought this one. And compared to a lot of the other stuff I'm listening to at the moment, it sort of, it was okay. But I've really grown to like this in the last few days, to be honest, over the last week. And that's maybe because, one of the other things I do is grow veg. So I have an allotment and a garden where I also grow some of the stuff. And it's that time of the year at the moment where that's taking priority over a lot of stuff. So You know, I've been listening to this streaming, not on vinyl actually, at the allotment in my headphones from the phone, and I've really started to like it. It's really started to get to me, and that's far more. I mean, there's more depth in it than I expected, to be honest. You know, yes, it's blues rock, but it also reminds me here and there of sort of southern rock, and maybe that's just the Black Crowes because I don't really know them. And even there are times I think that sounds a bit like the Stones. So, you know, I need to listen to it a lot more, but I'm really starting to warm to this album now. So it's another single album, and it's just on black vinyl, so I won't dwell on it. So now we come to, well, you know, this band is called Dive, and it's spelled D-I-I-V. I always think it is Div, but apparently it's supposed to be Dive, and in fact that's what they were called originally, going back. And it's a 4-piece that hail from New York, Brooklyn apparently, and they usually are just sort of lazily described as indie rock, but this really is music to stare at one's shoes, or gaze at one's shoes, shall we say. This is out and out shoegaze to me. And then this album is called Frog in Boiling Water. I was trying to read it from this graphic. Now I do know this band. I have a digital copy of their first album called Ocean. I don't think they produced a load. I don't know if I put a note. Yeah, this is their 4th studio album, so I didn't hear the middle two. But I really like that first album, and you know, if I describe them, it's sort of got that sort of fuzzy guitar and that sort of like really sort of slightly laid back vocals, downbeat vocals, shall we say. I would describe it more as, you know, more My Bloody Valentine than maybe Slow Dive, though in reality they're probably somewhere in between. And this is one of my favourite albums of the month. It came out towards the end of it, and this is one of 3 records that only arrived on Saturday, which was the 1st of June, so they were really late. This one was mostly because it was sort of released late in the month, and there are another couple which I'll come to, which I ordered, you know, more than, you know, halfway through, more than 2 weeks, and there was a problem, and it took the best part of 2 weeks to arrive. So there's a couple of 3 albums on here which I haven't listened to very much. This one I've managed to listen to a couple of times, and because I'm really into shoegaze at the moment, it's really, you know, it's really hit me, and it's got it's, you know, very resplendent here, red inside as well, and there is a sort of like a mini booklet with one of those old frog experiments here. Lots of graphics in there, strange graphics, but it does finish the close and puzzles, and it closes with all the tracks and their lyrics. So there you go, and it is how many has it got? How many tracks are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 on side 1 and 5 on side 2. And it's very resplendent in a froggy green. So that's Dive, D-I-I-V, and Frog in Boiling Water. And now we come to a band which I've known for years, but never really been into. I'm talking about, before I ramble on more, Camera Oscura and Look to the East, Look to the West. So I had this is their 7th studio album. I did have a digital copy of their 5th, which was called My Maudlin Career, which I sort of quite like, but it never really sort of set a fire for me. I never really, you know, I've never sort of thought, I would like to go back and listen to that. This was I've mentioned lots. Every time I mention that, I've got the Rough Trade Club subscription, so I get their album of the month automatically, whoever it's by, and and more often than not always, more often than not, it isn't from a band, or it's not necessarily an album I would have known about or thought of going out and buying. So I was aware Camera Obscura had a new album coming out, and I did wonder about going off and listening to it. But anyway, it arrived in the post as usual with a extra CD with some bonus demos on there, and I really like it. It's good old-fashioned, very gentle, what I would call indie pop. I wouldn't call it indie rock. It's more pop than rock, but again, it's got some beautiful vocals. So the main sort of singer and songwriter on there is Tracy Ann Campbell. I mean, they've been around for I don't know, 25 years, and she's got a fabulous voice. They come from Glasgow. But her singing again is really clear. There's no, she's not singing with a strong accent. It's very very clear lyrics, very clear vocals, and quite beautifully done. The songs are really well written. They're well played by a band who are expert. They haven't. This is a first album in quite a long time, I think. But just a really nice record, and it's a gatefold, very good quality card. All the lyrics on the inside, though, in writing, which is way too small for me to read, even with my glasses on. And it's very resplendent in what they call opaque violet. Though actually, there's a bit of transparency to it, so it's not that opaque. So there you go, and it's classic 10 tracks. 5 on each side. So now we come to one of the other albums which I ordered halfway through, and I finally arrived on Saturday, and again had a chance to listen to it a couple of times, and I really like it. And it's jazz, and it's the new album from Kamasi Washington, which is called Fearless Movement, and it's a double album. Again, nice glossy sleeve, good photography. I don't have any Kamasi's earlier work, to be honest. I think this is what number album is this? Oh, I don't know. He's obviously a jazz saxophonist, well known, and like a lot of solo jazz play, he's got lots of collaborators who play with him, mostly vocals. So on here, He's got the funk master himself, George Clinton, singing, but there's also several others, and some of them are really rapping to the jazz. But it's not, even if you're not into hip hop or rap, it's never it's sort of never inappropriate. It goes with it, and it's only on the odd track here and there. And he's also got Andre 3000 from Outkast, so I've mentioned a bit before, who's really got into flute. So this is another album where he's collaborating on one track, playing the flute. So it's a bit of a first impression, because I haven't listened to it a couple of times, but this is a really good modern jazz record. It has had some mixed reviews, I think, but I really like it. And it goes out. The closing track is a cover. I don't know the composer. I had to look him up, and it's Astor Piazzolla, who is an Argentine composer, mostly doing soundtrack work. And his track called Prologue, which was, I think it was on an album which was about tango. So tango. I'm interested. I'm going to go and have a look at that. But my point in mentioning it, the last track is called Prologue, which ought to be the first. But it is what I would describe as jazz for heavy metal lovers. It's really banging. And it's really head banging. It's unusual for me to listen to a jazz record where I want a head bang, because he's playing the sax like a proper lead guitar, like an out and out metal lead guitar. By metal, I'm not talking hair metal. I'm talking about old school metal, Black Sabbath and the like. You know, it's a great album. I'm looking forward to listening to this more. It is 12 tracks on it, and they are spread across 2 LPs, and one is red, and the other is blue. So we come to my last record. Oh, no, sorry, not my last one, my penultimate one. And this is another one which I ordered with the Kamasi one halfway through the month, and it finally arrived on Saturday. So another one I've only listened to a couple of times. And I think this one came out in April, and it was one I was umming and ahhing about. But I saw, you know, I read a couple of reviews, and saw quite a few people mention it. And it's by an artist, a singer-songwriter called Lucy Rose, and her album, This Ain't the Way You Go Out. Now, I heard of Lucy Rose, but I've never heard any of her stuff before this. But my interest was piqued from what I read, from people, subscribers, saying they were thinking, oh, they got this. I really like it. It is singer-songwriter of the highest standard. She's an English singer-songwriter. Her full name is Lucy Rose Parton, as in Dolly, she there's a sort of backstory to this. I think her previous album, which came out, I don't know, 17, 18, 19, or around then, pre-pandemic, was apparently very, very downbeat. She was suffering from depression at the time, apparently. And then in between that and this, she gave birth to a baby son in 2021, but suffered terrible back pain afterwards, which was really causing her problems. And she really struggled with the with the medical professionals to get it sort of identify what the problem was. And it turns out, now this is really rare, bearing in mind she's, then particularly, she was only in her very early 30s, just sort of turned 30. She was suffering from a really rare form of pregnancy-induced osteoporosis. So osteoporosis normally is in elder women, which, hormonal change, which can cause brittle bones effectively. And it turns out that, that her pregnancy had thrown things around and caused osteoporosis. And she had 8 fractures, 8 vertebrae fractures, which no wonder was causing a huge back pain. She eventually got it identified, and after many, many months of recuperation, finally managed to sit at the piano with her son and write the songs for this album. And despite all of that, they are really quite upbeat, So this is not a depressing record. It's a life-affirming songs, really quite upbeat. I mean, the second track is called Could You Help Me? And she does sing on there of her frustration with trying to get sceptical medical professionals to take her seriously, and they apparently thought she was being hysterical, where she had some serious medical condition. She's got a lovely voice, really nice voice. The music is, it's supposedly she's considered to be a folk singer, but to me the music isn't folk. It's not, she's got she plays the piano on it, so but she's got an ensemble of musicians she plays with, and they're putting down what I would describe as quite a sophisticated groove. It feels much more like jazz influence than folk influence, the background music. It's really quite sophisticated and it works really well. Her voice is lovely, so it's, yet another superb singer-songwriter. So again, if you like really good quality female singer-songwriter, and Alan Legg, if you're watching this is one for you, mate. So there you go, and that's there are 12 tracks on that, 6 on each side. And one of the tracks, I can't remember which one it is. There are 2 tracks, one on each side, which are quite short instrumental. So in terms of songs, it's actually a classic 10, but she's got Interlude 1 and Interlude 2, which are about a minute long. But on one of the tracks, and I can't remember which one it is, there's a baby there's a baby gurgling instead of vocals, which presumably is her baby son. So lovely album, well worth it. I'm pleased I took a gamble on this one. So we come to my last one, and it's a debut from the person I describe as a strange dude, and it's one Miles Korbensky, and his album is called When You Gonna Tell 'Em the Truth, Aaron. And apparently the strange dude bit, you can see there, apparently he only goes out, as in character, wearing a Stetson, apparently a denim jacket, you can't see that, and a full face mask. That's how he appears in public. So that's one strange dude. I was sort of slightly intrigued, I'd not heard of him before. This album was a very limited edition in sort of pink. I think they called it something else. I can't remember what. Was it coral? I can't remember. But this is a limited edition of only 100. I pre-ordered it ages ago. I read about it, and I was quite intrigued and thought I'd put my name down. It wasn't very expensive. In fact, I had a look, because there's obviously only 100 of this, so I had a look on Bandcamp, and he is selling his this album in vinyl, just plain black vinyl, and it's only sort of, I think, 17.90, 18 quid, something like that. And he even says, and I wish more artists would do this, that they ship from, anyone who buys this on Bandcamp, they ship from the UK within the EU and within the US, so that in those three places you don't have huge shipping costs and customs and taxation issues or anything. So it's a nice album. It's what I would describe as indie rock. It's got some catchy tunes in there, nice fuzzy guitar, quite laid back vocals. It's a nice album. I wouldn't say it's it's not my favourite album, but it's interesting. It's I don't know whether he's going to take off or whether this will be, well, it's not even a hit, is it? Because nobody's ever heard of him. Whether this is going to be just a one-off, who knows? But I like it. It's different, and I do like to try something different every now and then. So there you go. That's and as I say, it's on Pink or Coral or whatever that is, single album, and it's another 10-tracker, so there's 5 on each side, a classic one. So there you go. That's my 8 for I was going to say June, my 8 for May. I've also bought a few reissues in sales, filling gaps and things like that. So I'll do a catch up on roundup of reissues, important reissues that I've bought over the last few months later on in the month. So I've got a few other catch-ups to do first. So there you go, and apologies again for not doing the samples this time, but as I say, I'll have a look for tracks on YouTube and post those in the in the comments below. So if you want to have a look at those, go down there and click on those links for any you're interested in hearing. So thanks for watching. Cheers.